What's up, everybody? Welcome back into Local Comic Shop Day live on the EXP. I am your host for all things that have been the past 18 hours. And I got 6 more to go, but I'm going to start it off with some of my favorite people in the business, not just because they all have better hair than me and Brian and I have the same haircut, or because, well, they're just fun to listen to, but because they're the only people who understand exactly what's happening in the comic industry, because shock of shocks, they know about data. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. I'm going to play their video.
Coming to you from top secret field offices worldwide, these brave men and women fight a battle for truth, justice, and good, clean data. These agents of change make up the Bureau of Records, Objects, and Standards. They are the Data Bros.
Hey,
buddy!
Welcome.
You guys, we have some killer intro music.
I know it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And you know what? I'm a little disappointed that that is not our current logo. That's our old logo.
It's 3 old logos.
Oh, no,
It's pretty
Well,
great.
yeah.
Branding is something Django focuses on a lot. We found some old shelf talkers while we were moving out of our retro location just lately, and they've got like useful little quotes and pictures of our face, and like we've needed more of them. And I was like, oh sweet, Django, I found these. He's like, but that's not our branding color anymore. I was like, but they're useful and they look good. So branding colors.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
Please
that
don't lie.
entire video came together about a minute before this video started. So
Nice.
while I was spaced out as you were asking me who I was editing a video in the background and also participating in a podcast. And this is the kind of thing I do because I have ADHD terribly, and I'm constantly thinking about data. So why don't we introduce ourselves?
I love that.
There's some people out there who don't know who we are.
Yeah, I'm Django. I'm a data bro.
Yeah.
I'm Jeffrey. I'm a Django enthusiast. I've started several fan clubs and have a lot of online presence supporting and sharing the word and gospel of Django, and also a data bro.
But how's the branding on those things?
It stands up like the Tower of Pisa. It's perfect.
And I am Brian Garslide, and I am a data bro.
It's like Data Bros Anonymous.
DBA,
Data
if you
bro
will.
for multiple years now.
And I
Let's
discuss
see.
data with people.
2 of us run a physical store. 3 of us run an online store. 2 of us are on the Comet Standards board. 3 of us.
One of us, if not for them, there would be no Comet Standard, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a little while.
And all 3 of us work on building point of sale systems.
That's true.
And not the same one, ironically.
Not the same one. No, we're mostly here to provide an example to all people that competition doesn't have to be adversarial. You can have podcasts with one another and be subtly trying to sabotage the other under the covers the whole time.
Oh, I don't know that it's subtle.
Yeah, you're right. Never mind.
I think the saboteurs in this whole 3-pointed relationship are me and Jeff sabotaging each other, which that's probably the worst dynamic here that you can have.
Yeah, I've never made Jeff vomit, and that is true for you. So
everybody, just a heads up, when you get to, if you are also a comic book retailer and you are here and you're watching this, if you get to have those wonderful moments where you celebrate, you know, friendship and your profession with other comic store retailers, make sure you eat beforehand, especially if you're on the road.
Also, make sure you don't binge Succession before that happens. Just
that's true. Yeah. Or conversely, anytime you're going to a big retail meeting like that, make sure you binge Succession so you can see through all the BS.
Guys, I thought for this episode, since we haven't done one of these for a minute, although we're still on time, this season we're entirely on time.
Absolutely.
It'd be fun to talk a little bit about our secret origin and kind of go back to that time. Back, we can go as far back as we want. If we want to talk about the Data Bros secret origin before we even knew we were Data Bros.
The secret history of the DB universe.
Yeah, like
Data Bro Island.
2021, I think, was when we first met.
Yeah, I think so.
No. Dude, we're not going Data Bro Island.
I don't know.
Fine. Hey, fine. Hey,
no.
fine.
No.
Fine.
There's no
Data
Fight
Put
Island.
the ideas
There's
out there.
Data Fight Island.
It's not happening. Not happening, fellas.
That's a good reference.
So-
Good reference.
So why don't we go back to a time in 2021? We were in the midst of a pandemic. You guys had closed your physical location. It was still like a going concern, but you wouldn't allow people into it because you have a number of people with various levels of kind of risk in terms of kind of the pandemic that was going on at the time. And you were trying to figure out what you were going to do. You were on Moby at the time, and you're trying to figure out like what's the next thing that we're going to do. And that's when you came across me. So why don't you tell the folks how you found out about me, if you remember?
I don't remember exactly what it was that prompted us to get a hold of you, but it must have been some sort of conversation about point of sale systems. And we emailed you and you said, grab some time, which I always thought was a really cool way to say, hey, I got a couple minutes, but I don't have all day. But I think maybe that's the default setting for the program you were using to have us grab time from you.
Grab some time.
Yeah. Well, also, I had learned very, very early that time zones confuse me greatly.
Yeah.
And so one of the first meetings I had, the dude like was not there. And then 3 hours later, he's like, because I just thought he no-showed. And 3 hours later, he's like, hey, man, why aren't you at this meeting? You said it was going to be at 1 o'clock. And I was like, oh, 1 o'clock.
Which is why in all of our scheduling for these things, you're always very good at designating time zone.
Oh my God.
Like
well,
today you did it. Yeah.
I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I speak in time zones now.
So
yeah,
we met with you
my
at the
schedule
right
thing.
time zone.
Yep.
And we just kind of laid out what we needed, and you laid out what you were working on, and it all sounded like it was going to be a pretty good match. And we liked you. Like, I think instantly kind of bonded.
Yeah, I think so. Django had originally, because we were needing a point of sale system in our store. Movie was on its last legs. So Django had gotten a word about Brian somehow and grabbed some time with him. I wasn't there for that first meeting, but over the next couple of days, Django mentioned it a couple times. But what was more interesting was that he would mention that, like, oh, I've been talking to that guy, Brian, about, developing a thing, or maybe the risks of developing. I think it was outside of me and our good friend and employee developer, Dan Brooks. I think Brian was the first person that, like, Django was letting into an area of his brain and actually taking someone's word with value, because I think he saw the strengths of Managed Comics. So it was very interesting to, have, and actually probably if that hadn't happened, Django wouldn't have started building a point of sale system, because he wouldn't have had somebody to kind of goad him into it. So we'd have a very different life if it weren't for our competitor.
Well, and I think you were at that first meeting, because
Was
I
I?
distinctly remember meeting you. Yeah.
Okay.
You were just really stoned, I think, is all.
It was
But
a
you were
long time ago.
definitely there. Yeah, it was.
It was
Yeah,
the pandemic,
4 years ago.
probably. Yeah.
But yeah, you guys were both there, and I just liked the vibe that I got off you. And I remember I reached out to Django fairly soon after that, and I was like, listen, this is what we're actually building, because I hadn't told you guys really what we were building. And at the time, we had decided we were going to go all in on Shopify, and we're going to build like a point of sale interface for their point of sale. And so I said, here's what we're building. We think it's going to take us, I don't know, I said like something ridiculous, like 6 or 8 weeks, which is dumb. And then you got back to me a couple days later and said, listen, can we talk? And we talked, and you said, I think I'm going to build my own. And I said, cool. Can we still be friends? Literally said, like, can we still hang out? Like, because I like what you're doing. Because
And I'm sure you thought, you lunatic, there's no way you're going to do this.
Oh yeah, this is going to fail terribly. But I said to you, like, I had originally offered you a free beta, and you would be like free forever. I'm like, you if you want to do this with me, like you can be free forever. And you're like, I think I'm gonna build my own. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's talk, because there's a ton of challenges, and I think you're somebody that I can actually bounce them off of. Because the scary thing about this industry is, as many people as are in it, there are a handful of us who actually speak both enough technical language and enough like comic book knowledge to kind of marry those things together.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of people who can kind of talk at different levels of the stack, but there's a few of us that can actually like kind of speak throughout the stack. And so, yeah, it was just great to meet somebody that was kind of like that. And you like whiskey, and you're like, you want to do like a whiskey chat every now and then? I said, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. So much.
Good old pandemic days.
Oh my god.
So yeah, that kind of
whiskey and Legos
began the legacy. But I mean, I'm speaking just to like meeting you and feeling there was something in common, and just to the other listeners and people in this chat. Like, I think that's one of the really cool things about the comic industry, or ComicsPRO as an event. Just the ability to meet people, and the more people from within the comic industry I meet, the more there is that just like unsaid connection, or like finding your tribe, you know, to a certain extent. And if you run or own a comic shop, you immediately have more in common with me than I have with most people, which is such an interesting thing. And that 2021 era was sort of right around, I was like halfway into my time at the shop ish. And that was right as I was starting to come out of my shell a little bit because of ComicsPRO. And yeah, it was a very, very important, poignant thing in my life.
Yeah.
I think we'd have to fast forward a year after we met you to get to kind of the birth of Comet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was Pittsburgh 2023, which was the first time that we ever met in person.
Mm-hmm.
The three of us.
And I put Hot Pockets in my hands. I put hand warmers just so I would have an uncomfortably warm hand when I finally shook yours. And I don't know if it translated, but I still think that joke's got there's something there.
He planned that for days.
It didn't really work on me, but there was something there. And it was only when you told me that you had done it that I was like, this guy's funny. That is great stuff.
Yeah, you got to point at your jokes sometimes.
My favorite thing was meeting you guys in person and just being like we had known each other all of our lives. Like there was no beat, there was no awkwardness. It came up, we all hugged each other, and was like, yeah, we're best friends.
That's Jeff right there.
Yeah.
He salutes people with hugs.
Yeah, there's a pretty good video of our first meeting with Brian hugging me into a lay down on a couch. It's pretty good, but it's been very, very awesome to get to have a legitimate professional reason to need to get into the data and the nitty gritty of the comics industry, which is one of the reasons that we love to do this podcast, the Data Bros, and why I think it's been beneficial, hopefully, for the whole industry, because I think we both got great point of sale systems, but it means that our heads and waists are always deep in the data.
I love that Kyle says, I do not believe that was your first in-person meeting. I refuse to accept that headcanon. One of my favorite things was at the end of the week, we were sitting down with Stu, and we'd all had a couple beverages. And are we? We're 8 minutes in. And I said, Stu, it was so great to finally meet you in person. And he goes, no, we've met in person before. And I was like, no, this is the first time I've ever met. This is the first ComicsPRO I've ever been to. And he just goes, feck off. He's like, we've never met. He's like, no, dude, we've never met.
You're an easy guy to hang out with, man. Yeah. You're an easy guy to hang out with.
Yeah, that was fun. It was so great. Yeah. So that week led to Comet happening. And we had been talking for quite a while about just the data challenges that were happening with, all these disparate publishers coming in. There was, or distributors, I should say. There was Lunar, there was Penguin Random House. Everybody was doing things a little bit differently. Diamond was starting to lose their stranglehold that they had on data. And for literally decades, data was governed by, the way Diamond did it. And it was not great, but it was also not bad, which people don't give enough credence to not bad being good. It's like, so
it was workable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when that started going away, we realized that there was a need, and we had talked with our friend Katie Pride and Jessica Wells, from Penguin Random House. and we were just like, you know, we need to do a thing with this. And so we all decided, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And in that room was Django, myself, Stu Colson from Comic Hub, Jeff, Katie, and Jessica Wells. And we like sat down and decided what we were going to do, how we were going to present this thing.
The grease named Jeff.
Yeah.
One thing that I loved that both of you were kind of verbally taking into account with a lot of the things that we were discussing, like the data problems, because when there are like series codes or data problems and you get that in your comic shop, it can take you like 5 to 15 minutes to get it, you know, fixed and sorted out. And never does that feel like this prohibitive amount of wasted time. But both of you, like separately and at the same time, were processing that as like, this is 15 wasted minutes, but every store has to be doing that. 15 minutes times several hundred stores equals this amount of wasted time and the money involved in that. And, you know, that both of you were thinking about it in that way. And Brian, I think you'd even put like a dollar value to it, which is, you know, that really unlocked something in my mind, because with comics, there's always just like little things that will go wrong. But when we can actually start getting further up the stream to be able to fix some of these things that will affect hundreds of stores, that's where, you know, like the need for a comet is so important. And, you know, the fact that both of your guys' brains were looking at it from that perspective, I think is a huge amount of why the momentum for it was gained.
That 15 minutes can give a retailer the time to put up a Facebook post that they wouldn't have had time to do before, 100%. Or invent something that converts to profit for their shop. Where
bag and board 100 boards.
Yeah.
15 minutes. That's all we need.
That's it.
Yeah. And one of the things I liked about Django right from the beginning was that he was thinking bigger picture. It wasn't just about what the data could do for us individually. It was what the data could do for the entire, you know, ecosystem. Not everybody that was in that room that day was thinking that way. There were some people that wanted it to be very proprietary, and they wanted to kind of federate the data out. And we were very much like, no, this data should be free. And all it really needs is standards. If it had standards, it could be free. And then it would be it's a much better ecosystem. So yeah, we were on the exact same page, to the point where there may or may not have been some back channel conversations going on while Django and I were sitting next to each other via text that were saying, I don't know if I'm going to be here, dude. I might be walking out right now.
But we pulled it all together thanks to that guy in orange down there.
Exactly. Thanks, if it wasn't for Jeff, honestly, and I've said this a long time, if it wasn't for Jeff moderating and like really kind of clarifying a bunch of stuff that we were just too in our own butts about, I think we would not be where we were. So Jeff, to me, is like the unsung Comet founder.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah, I come from a background of parents who were school psychologists, so that's all there, but also like music and loving music and music history and like DIY ethos. So we're sort of, you know, like that data and, you know, comics, all of that should be like Fugazi, like build it in your place and get it out there for free. Like share this thing. If it's going to be good for people, we shouldn't make any barriers to it. And so it's been wonderful to see so many people get in step with that and work towards it.
That was the coolest thing, is that weekend we had our panel, and I honestly expected 16 people to show up. I thought 16 would be a massive success. And that room was full. There were 88 people in that room. I counted them at one point. Like, it was full. Yeah. There were people standing at the back, and I was just shocked at how many people were there. And then more importantly, how many people came up to us afterwards and were like, I want to be part of this. I want to volunteer my time. You know, the Comixology people came up and gave us their data model and just were like, here's what we were doing with Amazon. And this is the data we managed to get from every shop or every publisher. And it wasn't hard. It was just so cool. Like that there was such appetite for this thing at the time.
And I think we've made big strides, even though we don't have like final Comet files and things from everybody. We've got a document, we've got the standards, we've got like a lot of it is in place. And through those conversations, I think that data has stayed a lot more stable than it would have if we hadn't been meeting with, and like literally in the same Zoom call with the people in charge of this stuff from Marvel, Lunar, Penguin, Diamond, DC, Image, like all these major stakeholders, large retailers. It was such a collaborative experience. I think we have something really good, and I think everybody involved is kind of working through the nitty gritty of releasing these files and ingesting these files, which is
it's been really cool to look at from the outside and see these two. And then also a big shout out to Katie Pride, who's been a huge help as well. Yeah, it's cool. And I love when people volunteer their time because they understand it's for a greater good. Again, shout out the comics industry. High tides raise all boats, or whatever the correct version of that is.
Rising tide.
Pretty right.
Yeah.
Pretty tied.
Dylan.
TJ James has a great comment here. I've been trying to determine, since Kyle exposed me to Comet Standard, how the data can be useful to the average collector. That's a great question. So the way I see it is, and Django, feel free to jump in and correct me when I'm wrong, inevitably. The way I see it is like, it is really more meant for the retailer level to kind of make everything consistent. However, having things like consistent series codes means that we can actually identify individual volumes. When DC was doing things kind of outside of the Comet Standard, they were doing things using family codes, which totally made sense to them. But there was literally a month where there were 4 Titans #1s, and one of our Comet standards is a series can never have more than one #1. So if you have a second #1, that's a whole new series and needs a new series code. So it's little things like that help you identify volumes.
Yeah, as how it affects the collector, like Brian said, a lot of it is the data for retailers. But as a collector, if you have ever gone into your comic shop on a Wednesday and expected to see something that wasn't there, or been subscribed to something and for some reason it didn't show up, there's a really good chance that happened because of some error in the data and how the series was identified by the retailer to order. Is one example of it. Another would be if you've gone into the comic shop and found something in your file you didn't want, like maybe annuals, if you had specifically said you don't want annuals. But a lot of times annuals would get added to the series codes of things, which are a different thing entirely. So there's just this wealth of small things that can go wrong in a comic shop, and all of that affects the collectors that come in there. A massive shortage on something meaning that you get a second print when you really prefer first prints. All of that is the sort of trickle down of how it affects the collectors.
Yeah. So that's kind of the Comet Standard and the secret history of the Data Bros, right?
Yeah.
And I think adjacent to that, we were talking earlier today, if you guys are ready to move on.
Yeah,
sure,
buddy.
Yeah.
About surprising subscription numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to move on to like the next episode?
Oh, we do.
That's like a whole other episode, dude.
Oh, all right. I'll stop driving.
Yeah. I'll let you drive in a minute. Let's just wrap this bad boy up before we get there, though. I like where you're going. One of the key things that kind of is related to collectors is the barcode. And fairly early on, I realized just by accident that not a lot of people understood the anatomy of a barcode. And so I spent a lot of time creating what Jessica Wells likes to call my TED Talk on barcodes, which I've given 1,000 times now. And
it's my favorite, Brian.
I have literally broken a barcode down into exactly what each one of these pieces means, and why they're important. And why I'm so passionate about this is because during COVID, we lost a lot of people from the comics industry on kind of the senior tier who knew this stuff innately. So the gentleman, and I won't use names, the gentleman that was at DC who knew this stuff like the back of his hand was removed from DC and as part of the Warner Brothers cuts, and a new person came in, and there was some struggling in kind of catching up to speed because there's some institutional knowledge that you take with you when you leave a company.
It's so
the same
much
thing
to think about.
Yeah, the same thing happened at Boom. The same thing, like we recently saw when Philip left Boom, massive things were going on with their data at Penguin Random House because they just lost some institutional knowledge that they just didn't have anymore. So having ways of communicating this and with this standard, we make it a living document that everybody can just access. And suddenly, that institutional knowledge is now just part of your training. It's not, go talk to Bill and find out how we build barcodes, because he's the only one in the building that knows it. And heaven forbid that Bill gets hit by a beer truck one night and now nobody knows how to build a barcode, right? If there's a living document out there that they can use, to me, that's like the biggest part of our legacy, is that we're leaving behind stuff that can be used as training material in the future.
And I guess to TJ's question, it's right now, not every store calls cover B a cover B.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's cover C, sometimes it's cover F, and Comet helps with that as well. So if you're buying stuff from multiple stores and you say, subscribe me to cover B, if everybody's using the Comet standard, then they've got a good chance of all getting you the same book, which is the one you wanted. Like slightly more dialed in than just series codes, and it spiders out to everything.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, cover B is a good example, because I think most of my customers are getting cover C's for certain publishers, and I won't name names, but they actually have an ABC's book that I've tried to encourage them to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Great
was just
question
going to shout out
here.
this
Has
question.
there been any real pushback about Comet, or maybe apathy? I don't think there's been pushback. And really, like the thing about this was it was created with the input of over 90 stakeholders, which included retailers, publishers, distributors. We had Marvel and DC in the same room talking about fairly sensitive internal, decision making that goes on. And the deal was that we could never say who was saying what, but it was pretty cool to be in those rooms with like pretty important people who were making decisions about data.
And just like to your point earlier, where, you and I are kind of seeing things from two very different points of view. We've got the data and we've got the stores. That also gave us sort of a point of view from up here, which is the publishers and the distributors, and so some of the workflows and the data, the reasons that they do things that are weird to us. Once we started digging into that, like I found out some stuff that I never even considered. Like sometimes accounting is based on barcodes. So that's really interesting. And now I know not to complain about that specific thing because they're using it in a way we never considered.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Very cool. Well, guys, I think that is a tight 30 right there.
That is a
really
tight
30. If there's two things the Data Bros are known for, it's a tight 30 and a regular schedule of release.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's going to do it for this particular episode. If you just stick around, we're going to take a brief commercial break, and then we'll come back with our next episode, which will be another tight 30.
Hi, I'm Carrie, Chief Juice Logician here at Murphy's Apple Juice, and I want to tell you about a very important podcast, The Data Bros. Finally, a show that dives into what really matters: beverage ratios, orchard yields, carbonation curves, and optimal apple pulp density. I mean, why wouldn't a podcast care about juice analytics? Each week, the Data Bros squeeze out 30 juicy minutes of insight. So if you love apples, metrics, and extremely niche podcasts, subscribe to the Data Bros today, because data, it's in the juice.
Murphy's Apple Juice. It's not the taste, it's the shape. But it's also the taste, which is pretty darn good.
Coming to you from top secret field offices worldwide, these brave men and women fight a battle for truth, justice, and good, clean data. These agents of change make up the Bureau of Records, Objects, and Standards. They are the Data Bros.
Oh, Hi there. I'm Django from the Data Bros. We've been waiting for you. I'm waiting for my bros. I'm sure they'll be here any minute.
Hey, bud. Sorry about that. I was solving world problems. I'm back, though. God, was that scary for you?
So glad to see you. So glad you're back.
Thank goodness. The ship
Laughing
captain's
so
here.
hard. I can barely breathe. That was ridiculous. That commercial totally freaked out my cat. Well, that's not good. We don't want to freak out cats, folks.
Sounds like Murphy's to me.
To Adam Freeman for contributing to the Murphy's Apple Juice Data
gosh.
Bros saga. Love that guy.
Folks, if you enjoy a good yarn, you should go back to the early days of the Data Bros and really listen through. And I think there's an episode that is just so if you go to databrosinc.com, there's an episode that is just the entire Murphy's Apple Juice saga so far. And I really need more time to continue that story because I have it mapped out for like 68 episodes.
Mapped out? I thought it was real.
It's happening in real time, but he's been journaling it for the last couple of years.
That's what I mean.
Organizing
I've got voice. Yeah. I got voice. Oh, and REKCAH. Man, I really want some Murphys now. REKCAH is the genius behind the actual song.
The earworm.
Literally it haunts me every night. I go to sleep and I think you put it in your mouth. And
your wife loves it, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh, she loves it.
Shout out to Murphy's Apple Juice for being an official sponsor of the Data Bros. And if anybody else is interested in sponsoring the Data Bros, it is a very interesting bed to be in.
You know, we've had a couple of other sponsors come out a couple times, and they've never really had the staying power of Murphy's. And I think it's because, Big Apple has got a lot of money. Mm-hmm. We had Meat Cute for a while there. That was the meat alternative. And they only lasted for like 2 episodes. I can't remember. There was another one that we had.
Was it Unico?
No, we didn't.
Was it cashhousesgold.com?
We did have those guys. Those guys were suspicious.
The people that were giving us heads up on new series that were coming out that always seemed a little bit dated.
Kamiko.
Yeah, Kamiko. Yeah, they were pretty good. Yeah.
Unico.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
A lot of sponsorships going on in the Data Bros.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. But that's not why we're here to talk to you. We're not here to talk to you about sponsorship. No. You can write us privately about that. We're here to discuss something very important.
We will take any amount of money, though. There's no amount too little.
Yeah, actually, Jeff-Figley at Jeff-Figley on Venmo.
Yeah.
If you
there you go. You do it.
Gets right to the Data Bros. Honest.
Yep. Yeah.
By the way, fellas, tonight's beverages have been. Are you familiar with the whiskey sour?
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Are you familiar with the amaretto sour?
Yes.
Have you ever met its cousin, the amaretto whiskey sour?
Oh
I'm never drinking again.
Yeah, that's a good choice. And then we've got, for this episode, we've got the old fashioned, which you just got to class it up sometimes.
Also classy. You guys want to talk about subscription stuff?
Yeah, I want to talk about comics, you guys. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, let's stop this nonsense about data. Let's just talk about comics.
No, it's all in there.
Comics data. So we were talking earlier today amongst the 3 of us about surprising subscription numbers. So Jeff and I own a comic store in Bellingham, Washington. Brian has Earth 519 online. He's in London, Ontario, in Canada. And somehow, within a day, without even communicating this to each other, both of our groups were surprised by our King Spawn subscription numbers.
Shocking.
Jeff and I were talking about it in the car yesterday, and you brought it up today.
Yeah, it's so funny that we talked about the same thing.
But it did beg the question of it's got a really solid subscription number in our store.
Super solid.
And, for a book that is sort of a tributary of a series that's been coming out for so long, it is not often that they have a readership number that stays so consistent and locked in. And as Django and I were driving around, and he was driving me around like Miss Daisy while I was hanging out in the back trying to not throw up more on my shoes, we were sort of talking about when Todd McFarlane had pitched that idea of once a month, there's a Spawn book. We're going to have 4. It's going to be the year of Spawn. What a brilliant truly brilliant that was, because it quadrupled the amount of Spawn books that were coming in and then being sold. And Spawn, fortunately, has a really reliable, locked-in subscriber amount. So it got us thinking about what are some of those other books that come out that surprise us on their success, or when you're counting on a Tuesday or whatever, you're like, wow, I'm really getting this. This is too much. And then you realize at the end of Wednesday that it's sold out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think everybody was taken by surprise by absolutes and ultimates, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like
for sure.
that kind of blindsided all the shops. And also I just stepped on whatever you were going to say, Brian, and I did it again. So
no, I was just going to say, folks, if you're listening to this right now, drop in the comments. What are your surprising, the titles that you're always shocked about? And I'm not talking, your Batmans or your Spider-Mans. Everybody's going to sell a lot of Batmans and a lot of Spidermans, but what are those kind of backlist titles that you're like, wow, I'm consistently selling, 1 out of every 4 of my customers blank title? We'd love to hear what yours are, because I think ours are always shocking to us internally. And just talking about them, it was funny how many of them were very common for each one of us.
Yeah. So unlike our last episode, feel free to really be a part of the conversation. We do want to hear the ideas and things that people are dropping.
We wanted to hear you last time too.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. So one book that sort of shocked me in terms of how many I was selling, especially relative to the series that it's based on, were Storm and Rogue. Both of those books are books that are coming out, and obviously we've got a kind of reliable X-Men number, and then usually when you get a mini series based on characters from that, unless it's Wolverine, you're probably going to be selling less than that X-Men number. And what is kind of astounding to me is that Storm and Rogue of the Savage Lands would come in and be at and sometimes above our main X-Men series across the different covers of it, which is a really interesting, retailers have mixed feelings about the numbers of covers that come out for comics. And I think it's easy to assume that it's just a negative thing. But when the publishers are able to lock in on a character or a series that can really benefit from multiple covers, it ends up, I think, working in our favor. And Storm and Rogue, Poison Ivy that's a great one. Yeah. We sell a ton of alternate covers of those. So that one is interesting to me, and I can go out and kind of paranoid brain try to think of the reasons why that's as successful for those series as it is. But that's one that shocks me in my store. Brian, how long have you been running the shop now?
9 months. It's 9 months this month. This is my 9th month in business, which is amazing to me. It's shocking that it'll be a year in like a quarter.
I just want to pick your brain about the changes to manage comics that have been implemented since.
Oh my God, dude, so many, and so many of them are just like subtle little things. Like just this last week, we added a highlight to the and Stronghold Collectibles. This is Christina or man, I'm so bad with names, but either her husband or Christina. It's one of the two. Anyway, we added a little like icon for multiple numbers. So if you're getting 2 copies of something, we added like a little icon. And on the print sheet version of it, it puts an attention, ATTN, and then that next to it, because we print our pull this out, and then my kids, one of them's not even my child, but anyway, my 2 helpers that help me out actually physically read paper, right? And so having that print sheet have a little bit different icon was really important for us, because they were screwing up all the time.
Yeah, that's those benefits of like building POS systems while running a shop allows you to see all of the things that are needed within there. So yeah, like those things to overcome pull blindness is what we refer to it as.
Yeah, exactly.
Is an important thing. But yeah, what are some series that exceed your expectation monthly when it comes out?
So like Storm and Rogue are about half of my X-Men numbers, but across all covers, Rogue was par with my X-Men numbers, which is bizarre to me. Storm is about half even with the multiple covers. But the one that always shocks me, like all the Spawns are surprising. Like we sell 7 more copies of King Spawn than we do Spawn, which I don't understand that one.
That's wild. That's the opposite of what Stronghold is mentioning right now in the chat.
I was just reading that.
Yeah.
The one that I love and that shocks me every time is like all the Ghost Machine stuff. We sell way more than I would expect.
Totally.
We're selling 18, 20 copies of Rook Exodus.
Yeah.
Which I think that's the weakest of all of them, and yet it sells really, really well. And those are a higher price point than most books, because I think they're a $4.99 cover point. Maybe they're
how about
could be,
how about the EC anthologies from Oni?
Very surprising. Yeah,
those are ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, where like the number of series that there are for them, ordering comics for 12 or so years, you do just kind of create a paradigm for attrition and, you know, diminishing returns on multiple series and stuff. And this one defies my expectation that I would assume that I'm going to have some drop off between them or as a new series comes out. And I have found myself selling out of my initial orders for those pretty regularly because that attrition rate doesn't seem to be there. In fact, they are continuing to turn on new fans while having that sound base of the people who were subscribed to the previous ones.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I think the one thing to note too about the Ghost Machine stuff is I've seen 0 attrition on that. Like it has been solid all the time. I've never, we've had solid numbers since day one.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really, you know, another one that shocks me every month, even though it shouldn't at this point, is Something is Killing the Children. And we sell about as many B covers as we do A covers. And I think that's because the B covers have been pretty consistently Jenny Frischen, if I remember right.
She's got a big fan base, yeah.
She does.
Yeah, that was always kind of a little bit shocking.
It's super interesting because, you know, I mean, not to go too deep in the retailer griping stuff, but like, I don't know how we discover that these things sell as well as they do. And I don't know how well they would sell if we were, you know, showered with extra copies for the early issues. You know, reprints and stuff help with that, but you can lose some momentum if you sell out. And it's a tricky thing that I don't envy Jeff for doing every week, is deciding how many of something to get to find our ceiling and not waste money.
I want to shout out Nancy and the folks at DC for putting printings of the edition, like issues of the Absolute stuff, the core Absolute titles. They made new printings that are just gonna be available. And that is so excellent, knowing that as a store, I can order more, but I'm not freaked out by too much or not enough. And I can really be much more accurate with the financial needs at that moment. It's wonderful to be able to have additional printings of Absolute Martian Manhunter #1, which has been like our highest selling Absolute book, or second highest selling, which is another one that surprises me because it is so out there. It makes me optimistic about readership to see that it is resonant with so many.
Yeah, it's true. That's one of the more surprising ones, is like that is one of the better selling Absolutes. What I love about those the multiple printings is, even though the trade paperbacks are out of print, I just recently bought like a whack load of alternate printings and just bundled them up as
ketchup
just
bundles
sets. And those are selling really, really well, like way better than they were selling as individual issues. So yeah, it's a really good idea to use those things to get people caught up on the current storylines.
That's a really good idea, Brian. We ordered a whack load of the hardcovers when the paperbacks went out of print, but building your own bundles of those issues because those prints are available is a really smart way that DC can kind of increase the print availability of those paperbacks.
After the show, I'll tell you guys my idea that I've been pitching to some people about ways to keep stuff coming in a little bit faster. It's probably already been thought of, and there's probably a good reason that they don't do it. It might be the accounting department, but I don't have time to get into it right now.
Getting constant prints to give readers is keeping people on single issues instead of collection, which is really, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, totally Stronghold.
Transformers, like they've been, I think they're on like the 86th printing of Transformers #1.
Dude, with a sound chip now. They keep finding ways to make those additional printings interesting to people, which is
But
impressive.
that's another one, like that sound chip. I sold 6 copies of it, which at $20, and I think Canadian it's like damn near 30.
Yeah.
And I sold 6 copies of it, which I was shocked at. We had pre-orders for 4, and then I went in on a couple extras.
So the counter side of that is, I'm sure that we all have comics in our comic shops that, despite how much we love them or what high quality we think they are, we as a store don't sell as many of them as we would expect. So the 3 of us, the 2 of us, were kind of making a list of like, what are those things that don't sell as well as we would like or expect them to? So Django, do you have any things like that? And then those people in the chat, what is that stuff that is amazing to you that doesn't sell quite as well? Get that insight from other retailers so we can get it and be pushing it as well.
I mean, I think the one that you and I are both huge fans of that, for whatever reason doesn't sell super well, but I think is a very well done comic, is the Dynamite's Terminator.
Yeah. It's weird. I keep finding myself in a conflicted space of like reading a Terminator issue from Dynamite and being like, I think that was really good. And it can't happen again, can it? And now they've got 11 or 12 issues and they're all awesome. And the new mini is going to be coming out from Declan. And like but yes, at the same time, higher than I kind of would expect a Dynamite Terminator to be. Like we have about 9 to 10 that we're ordering and selling each time.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, like, it's that one's kind of a mixed bag. Another one that was coming out this year and was recently announced to extend to an additional series is Assorted Crisis Events, or the Papcast, as we refer to it as Ask Cry Eve. 5 issues have come out so far of that. Unlike many other series, that one, as it was coming out, readership was picking up over the first 5 issues, which I'm sure most people here know. Like in general, you can kind of look to rely on some attrition in those first several issues. But even still, with a growing readership, it's a book that we are selling around 15 copies of. And it's truly maybe my favorite comic book that came out last year.
I kind of wonder if other stores had that same pattern. I mean, obviously it did better than they expected since they extended it. To me, that series has felt like the closest analogy to another series would be Ice Cream Man, which I think was initially going to be 4 issues of one-shots, isolated stories, and they just kind of kept going and going and going. And now we're 40-ish, 44, 45 issues in. They're being really playful with playing cards or collectible card games instead of an issue. So yeah, just like the excitement that people can have building that thing, I'm really curious how many stores just didn't get it. Because you and I listen to that podcast, iFanboy, and they've always been kind of mystified by Ice Cream Man. And if it was their store, I don't think that they would pick up readership necessarily.
Yeah, Ice Cream Man is another really interesting book, and I'm glad that you mentioned it in relation to Ask Cry Eve, because it is the most similar type of thing. And while we have, I forget which issue Ice Cream Man is up to at this point, but it's been coming out since before the pandemic, and it has in our store a very solid readership for a book that's that far in, that is all like one-shots. But yeah, I wonder, that's another one I would love to hear the pitch for. I would love to talk to W. Maxwell Prince and just see what was the original intent, for the ultimate arc of that story.
Absolute
chat, Stronghold has mentioned that, Terminator, quality book, put it on the shelf. It just doesn't really move. Power Fantasy, Brian, who is also a huge Power Fantasy fan, and it's also died off a bit. So that's just that. And that seems to be a book that could really kind of live in collections very healthily. Kieran Gillen's got an established name and everything. So,
a couple others that I wish had bigger readership. The main one is probably Feral, which I think is an excellent zombie story starring cats instead of people. But I always felt like That Texas Blood had a really slow start, and I see a lot of kudos for it now in collected versions, but I don't think that it really had the legs that I would have expected it to have and the readership I would have expected it to have right out of the gate.
And so some of those things that don't sell quite as easily as we would expect or have a high enough readership can sometimes be related to some of the obscure or unique ways that publishers and distributors are putting comics out. You know, like unique sizing is something that in the last handful of years we've been seeing way more comics coming out in slightly different size conventions for any number of reasons, whether it's Black Label and Distillery's sort of magazine format where you're actually getting that blown up art, or the DC work in progress issues that they've been putting out just recently of penciled ink pages that are blown up in the same size as the Batman Hush 2 Treasury editions. And all of those are things that can factor into how easily a book sells. So one thing we wanted to kind of reach out to the chat about are, how are some of the ways that you are maximizing your sales with those uniquely shaped books? In our store, so much, and I think this is true of a lot of comics, we're all filling our stores with like the same 25 fixtures.
11-inch tall shelves.
Yeah. So, you know, despite our best efforts, sometimes it can be hard to actually curate a space for those things that are enormous, that have a different sort of shelf life than others and a different collector base as well. And just how people feel about those things, those sizes, and what are the problems that come into it, but then also the great aspects of it.
One of my favorite things was when Black Label first started coming out. Like Black Label really kind of kicked off a resurgence of magazine size comics that, like, I don't think we've seen magazine size comics like that since the 80s, probably.
Yeah.
Before bags and boards were really a big thing. And so it's been fun to see, you know, people doing things like figuring out that they can actually just buy a magazine box, that not everything has to fit in a comic box. You can also put it in a magazine box. And Stronghold Collectibles in the chat is talking about that too. Like, have the bags and boards. People don't like to get stuff that they can't protect. We're in a collector's market. I'm kind of honestly surprised we don't have ash can sized bags and boards from BCW at this point.
That's
like
true.
Bags, boards, boxes, guys. We could probably sell those.
Django did the brilliant thing when the first issue of Last Ronin came in at the size that it was, and he figured out how to cut all of them to be the perfect size. So happy to have Brian back. Shout out to Stronghold. I totally agree. The Massive Verse, we are actually seeing that readership very slowly grow, but it really has like a locked in group, and it is continuing to do well. In the conversation about those oddly sized comics, I think, exactly. The bags and boards are a necessary component. Django and I were just traveling down the I-5 corridor and visiting a bunch of stores. And it was interesting this week. We saw the More Fun Comics facsimile in that large size, as well as like Batman. And what I was seeing was the same damage on all of them. Like, and it has to happen in shipping or something like that. But that's one of those things that those unique sizes are very, very cool. But we also need to find ways to protect them in shipping and transit to be able to live on our shelves. What I would love to see for those really big work in progress books that they've been doing, I would love to see those coming in like a hardback, like a thin hardback, in the same way that they've been doing the Marvel like gallery editions, or, you know, like the Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale runs, that oversized hardcover. I would love to get a really tall kind of hardbound version of these penciled page books. So essentially like smaller artist editions and stuff. That's one thing I would love.
Yeah. And if we look back to like what CrossGen was doing a few, like, you know, what's that, 10, 15 years ago, they were doing George Perez kind of artist editions that were at 11 by 17, and they had really nice cardstock. It was the thick cardstock that they use for the sketch editions, and that really held up well when you put it on a shelf. So stuff like that, I think, would make a big difference. And a lot of this, I think, is us just needing to talk to these guys about this stuff is really cool. I hate shipping it personally.
Right.
But it's awesome and people want it. And like that work in progress of Absolute Batman was a gorgeous book. I loved it.
And we got a Frank Quitely one. Hi, hello, my favorite person in all the land, All-Star Superman.
I bought that one, but yeah, I didn't.
I found last night looking around the store because I wanted to build a section to display odd size things. I found in a box of stuff that we bought at some point from somebody a giant Dave Stevens cheesecake poster book.
Yeah, I have that.
And I was like, this is gorgeous. And also it's that cardstock thing. So I could just put it up on a book stand and it was great.
I'll be right back.
It's like we are in a very fun, playful, interesting time with comics because it's not just kind of weirdly shaped things that are coming out. We're getting all sorts of really interesting things, like blind bags are on the rise right now, which is awesome. Or you get comics with a more unique paper stock. And I think that some people consider like the newsprint maybe like a cheaper step down, but there's an aesthetic quality to that I absolutely love. So what are some of the things that publishers have been sending out that are playful that you've enjoyed getting to kind of see in your shop?
I think we have 2 minutes left.
Oh yeah, glow in the dark covers, sound chips, those pumpkin spice variants from DC. But
I'm telling you, I love the newsprint stuff. Like it for me as an older man, I find it easier to read because it's not glaring the way that the shinier paper does, and that's why I found the compact editions were so easy to read, even though it's a smaller font and should be harder for me to read. It's because there's no glare on it. So I think like some more of that kind of stuff. Like when you're doing printing, matte is considered a premium quality print. So maybe we just need to kind of move towards some more matte stuff. I'd love
that newsprint's less likely for my oils to take the ink off the cover and pages while I'm reading them.
I'm tired of holding comics like this.
Listen,
that I don't.
We've run a touch long on this one, but there's two things that the comics data bros are notorious for, and it is a tight 30 and a regular release schedule. So
being on time.
I could continue to talk a lot about the cool things that we've seen coming out of the comics industry over the last year and some of the innovation happening there. I just want to leave it at, I really like it. Keep it up, you guys. I think we would all agree that the first Invincible blind bag was a massive success for all of us.
Yeah, it was great.
And subscribe to our podcast.
Data Bros. You can find it on podcast feeds and stuff. Data Bros Inc.
Go to
databrosInc.com. Do you guys just want to keep going for like another 5 hours and I can go take a nap?
Kyle, how are you holding up, bud? You doing all right?
It's going to be a long 5 hours, boys.
Oh,
but we're going to do it.
You'll never forget this local comic shop day.
Wow.
Oh, it's entirely possible. I could get dementia. But
yeah, that's true. That's true. Me too. Well, thank you so much for having us, Kyle. And we've been the Data Bros, and you're doing an awesome thing here. And we'll get out of your way for the next stuff.
Absolutely, guys. We've had Managed Comics, we've had CSA. Coming up in about 45 minutes time or half hour's time, somewhere in there, we're gonna have Comic Hub.
Yes,
so all the Pete, but
Pete,
Pete.
We're gonna crack the Pete nut these days. There's no way
Pete's accent down.
I don't understand why Pete doesn't love us. It kind of offends me, honestly.
Because we get visibly disappointed when we find out it's not Stu.
Apparently, Stu wanted to be here. Stu really did, but Stu is in India, and we couldn't figure out the time zones.
Talk to Brian. He's pretty good at time zones.
I don't know that I can crack. I don't know that I can crack India. I have not figured that one out yet, fellas.
So, thank you guys for being here. I've wanted to have the Data Bros on the channel for a while. I've wanted to have the Relatively Reasonable podcast or whatever it's called on the channel for a while. I was talking to Brian about doing this, and I kept coming up with different names that weren't quite the actual name of a Comics Place Presents. So
Papcast.
There
Sounds
you go.
Right.
So
how much that makes Django cringe. That's my favorite.
It really does. So thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you having been here. And thank you for taking part in Local Comic Shop Day with me.
Thanks for
having
having
me.
me.
Love you, Kyle. Love all you guys. Thank you.
Absolutely.
See you in the
All right.
future.
Yeah, we'll see you guys around.
I'm not going to touch any buttons, Kyle. Make us go away.
All right, good.
Hand check.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to continue on with our local comic shop day. Michigas is what I'm going to start calling it as I get more and more tired. We are going to take a look at a video from one of our local comic shop partners that has sent in some videos for us to show on the air today. And that partner is, let's go with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We'll be right back after this message.